When night janitor Leon Harris stayed late to clean the top floor, piano notes floated through the empty glass tower like Morse in a storm. He followed the sound and found 12-year-old Callista Monroe, the CEO's hidden prodigy, playing with terrifying precision, eyes dry, hands burning. To him, it was music. To the building, it was code. He didn't know every arpeggio unlocked a firewall. Every rest masked a transfer, nor that Callista's secret could shatter Vivian Monroe's billion-dollar empire by sunrise, before anyone could interfere. Stay. The janitor isn't the only one with a past tonight. A genius child will ask for freedom in the only language she's allowed to speak. Seattle at night wore rain like armor. The Monroe Dynamics Tower rose 63 floors into the cloud line, its glass skin reflecting the city's pulse in cold LED rhythms. Inside, the air tasted of metal and ambition. Polished marble swallowed footsteps. Security cameras tracked every corner with mechanical indifference. This was a temple to innovation, but also to control a place where brilliance was harvested like data, where human voices echoed too loud and died too fast. On the 42nd floor, a grand piano sat in a conference room made entirely of glass. Rain traced vertical rivers down the windows. The instrument was positioned so visiting executives could admire it during merger talks, a symbol of culture in a cathedral of commerce. But late at night, when the building emptied and the servers hummed their secret songs, the piano became something else. It became a transmission device, a confession booth, a weapon wrapped in ivory keys. The story turned on three symbols: piano notes that encrypted commands, origami cranes folded from stolen memo paper that carried mathematical whispers, and rain that fell like judgment, or perhaps absolution, depending on who stood beneath it. This was a tech thriller dressed in family tragedy, where the greatest hack wasn't committed with code but with music, and where a 12-year-old genius would force the world to choose between profit and conscience. Leon Harris woke at 5 in the morning to the sound of his daughter humming a melody she'd invented in her sleep. Audrey was 10, gap-toothed, brilliant in the way children are before the world teaches them to doubt. She sat at their tiny kitchen table, folding paper robots from recycled grocery receipts, her brown hair catching the dawn light filtering through their apartment window. He packed her lunch with the precision of ritual. Turkey sandwich, apple slices arranged in a star, a granola bar she'd choose over the apple. He stuck a gold star on the lunchbox lid and wrote in marker, "Mission complete." She grinned. "Dad, if you run electricity through salt water, does it make the water angry?" Leon paused, butter knife in hand. "Angry? No. But it makes it conductive, which means the electricity can travel through it easier. Like a road? Exactly like a road." He crouched to her level. "But you never test that yourself, okay? Electricity and water together can hurt you." She nodded solemnly, filing the knowledge away. He saw himself in her, the same hunger to understand how things worked, the same refusal to accept surfaces when depths could be explored. It was the quality that had made him a good software engineer once, before the accident that killed his wife and shattered his confidence. Now he cleaned floors instead of writing code. It was safer, quieter, invisible. Monroe Dynamics gave him a magnetic badge that opened service elevators and supply closets. He pushed a cart loaded with industrial cleaners and microfiber cloths through corridors that smelled of ozone and expensive coffee. Executives passed him without seeing him. He'd become scenery, a function, not a person. But invisibility had advantages. He noticed things. The way certain doors stayed locked, even during business hours. The pattern of lights that blinked on the server room panel. The origami crane he found one night on the executive floor, folded from Monroe Dynamics letterhead, with a frequency formula written in pencil along the wing. He kept the crane in his pocket, meaning to throw it away, but never quite managing to. Something about the precision of the folds, the delicacy of the numbers, it felt like a message in a bottle. On Thursday nights, Leon's route included the CEO's floor. The elevator opened onto silence and glass. Vivian Monroe's corner office commanded the skyline like a general surveying territory. He'd seen her exactly twice. Once in the elevator, where her gaze had passed over him, and then returned, lingering for a heartbeat on his hands as they gripped his cart. And once, through her office window, standing alone, staring at the city as if calculating its worth. She was tall, severe, beautiful in the way winter mornings are. Beautiful, stunning, and untouchable. But there'd been something in that lingering glance. Not attraction, exactly. Curiosity, maybe. Recognition of carefulness in another careful person. Tonight, the rain began as he emptied the recycling bins. Fat drops streaked the windows, blurring the city into watercolor. And beneath the storm's rhythm, almost hidden piano notes. Slow, deliberate, achingly precise. He followed the sound to the glass conference room. Inside, illuminated only by the city's glow and the faint blue pulse of emergency lighting, a child sat at the piano. Her posture was perfect. Her fingers moved like they were typing commands rather than making music. The melody was strange, technically flawless, but emotionally void, as if the player was translating math into sound and skipping the part where feeling lived. Leon stood in the doorway. The girl didn't stop playing. She knew he was there. When the phrase ended, she spoke without turning. Most people don't hear it. Hear what? The way the building breathes. The servers on the 38th floor cycle every 11 seconds. The HVAC shifts every 43. The security system blinks every 7. If you listen, you can hear all of it. Every machine has a rhythm. Leon stepped inside slowly. The girl was small for her age, with dark hair pulled into a ruthless ponytail and eyes that tracked everything with calculating speed. She wore a navy dress too formal for midnight. On the piano's music stand sat sheet music covered in pencil markings, not notes but numbers, graphs, timestamps. "You play beautifully," he said gently. She flinched as if he'd struck her. "I play correctly." "That too." She finally looked at him. Her gaze was ancient. "You're the janitor. I'm Leon. I'm Callista Monroe, of course. The CEO's daughter. The genius everyone whispered about but no one ever saw. Does your mom know you're here?" Callista's jaw tightened. She knows everything. The girl's fingers twitched toward the keys, but stopped. "Do you know what happens if I don't play?" Before Leon could answer, footsteps echoed down the hall. "Security." Callista's eyes widened in panic. Leon moved on instinct, stepping out into the corridor with his cart. "Evening. Henry, the security chief." A wall of a man with military posture and a skeptical squint. Paused. Leon. Working late. Spill in the northeast conference room. Coffee grounds in the carpet. The lie came easy. Took forever. Henry glanced past him toward the glass room. Callista had vanished behind the piano. Crouched low. Heard music. Probably the cleaning crew's radio on another floor. Sound travels weird in these towers. Henry's gaze lingered. But he nodded. "Get home safe." When the footsteps faded, Leon returned to the conference room. Callista stood beside the piano, clutching her sheet music. "Why did you cover for me?" "Because I have a daughter your age, and she should be allowed to play." Callista's expression cracked for just a second. Relief, surprise, something close to hope. Then it smoothed again, into that eerie control. As she passed him, a hair clip slipped from her dress pocket and clattered on the marble. Leon picked it up, intending to hand it back, but she was already gone, slipping into the shadows like smoke. He placed the clip on the window ledge. In the hallway, a figure moved at the far end. Vivian Monroe, standing perfectly still, watching. Their eyes met across 50 feet of polished emptiness. She didn't speak, didn't smile. But she saw the clip in his hand before he set it down. Saw him choose gentleness. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking a lonely rhythm against the floor. Leon couldn't stop thinking about the music. At home, while Audrey chattered about her school day, he played a recording he'd made on his phone. The melody wound through their small apartment, like a puzzle refusing to be solved. Audrey was building a robot from cardboard and batteries. She hummed as she worked, unconsciously mimicking Callista's melody. Then she tapped the table once, twice. 3 times in the same intervals as the piano's rests. Leon froze. Do that again. Do what? The tapping. She repeated it. The pattern matched timestamps on the maintenance logs he'd memorized from his rounds. Callista wasn't just playing music. She was conducting the building itself. He spread his work schedule across the kitchen table, cross-referencing his phone recording with the notes he'd scribbled during his shifts. Every time Callista played a certain chord progression, the backup servers on the 38th floor activated. Every rest coincided with a data packet transfer. The silences were as meaningful as the sound. "Dad, are you okay?" He looked up. Audrey watched him with concern beyond her years. "Yeah, sweetheart. Just trying to solve something. Like a puzzle. Exactly like a puzzle. But this puzzle had teeth. If Callista was controlling the server backup cycle through music, she was either being used, or she was the architect of something far more sophisticated than anyone realized. Either way, a child was at the center of corporate infrastructure, hidden in plain sight, speaking in code because her voice had been taken. Leon pulled the origami crane from his pocket. The frequency written on the wing matched a backup protocol. She'd been leaving breadcrumbs, messages, evidence. The hallway lights flickered once, twice. The building's electrical system protesting the storm, or something else. Leon pocketed the crane. Tomorrow he'd have to decide whether to protect a child or protect himself. But tonight, watching Audrey fold paper into impossible shapes, humming a melody that was also a mathematical sequence, the choice was already made. He just had to survive the consequences. The confrontation came during a scheduled maintenance window. Leon volunteered to assist the electrical contractor, betting on access to restricted areas. The contractor was grateful for the help and careless about protocol. When the power fluctuated on the 37th floor, Leon slipped away toward the server room, marked with warnings. Authorized personnel only. Biometric access required. CES. CES. End of CES. Required. CES. The door was open. Emergency protocol during power events. He had 90 seconds. Inside, the server room hummed like a mechanical heart. Rows of black towers blinked green and amber. Cooling systems whispered. On the central monitor, data streamed in columns, and there, embedded in the code, he saw it. Musical notation converted to binary, timestamps matching Callista's performances, and a label, Halcyon Protocol, Callan. He snapped photos with his phone, hands shaking. This wasn't just backup management. This was an AI learning system, predictive modeling, decision architecture. And it was being trained by a 12-year-old girl through piano performances that looked like therapy but functioned as programming sessions. On the screen, a note in the code comments, "Subject demonstrates exceptional pattern recognition. Emotional detachment. Optimal for scenario modeling. Continue isolation protocols. Subject, not daughter, not child." Leon printed a fragment of the logs and stuffed the paper inside his jacket. Behind him, a camera's red light blinked to life. He'd been seen. He backed out, walking fast, but not running. Running was guilt, and rejoined the contractor just as the lights stabilized. "Where'd you go?" "Check the breakers in the utility hall. All green." The contractor nodded, satisfied. But Leon's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He'd just stolen evidence from a billion-dollar corporation. He'd crossed a line. There was no going back. That night, he stood in his bathroom and stared at his reflection. He looked older than 38, tired, scared, but also awake, in a way he hadn't been since the accident. A child was being weaponized. Her art was being coded into systems that could predict market crashes, optimize resource distribution, simulate geopolitical conflicts. And every night, she sat alone at that piano, playing her prison bars. He thought of Audrey, asleep down the hall, safe and free, and dreaming of robots. He thought of Callista, whose dreams were probably logged and analyzed. Art from a child. He whispered to his reflection. They're turning her art into weapons. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Stay in your lane. Mr. Harris. They knew. Of course they knew. Leon deleted the text, turned off his phone, and made a decision that would either save a life or destroy his own. Probably both. The next evening brought Callista to Leon in the break room during his shift. She appeared silently, carrying sheet music that trembled in her hands. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. No tears left, maybe. Or tears too dangerous to shed. "They know you were in the server room," she said without preamble. "I figured. My mother wants to fire you." "That's fair." "It's not fair. You were trying to help." Callista's voice cracked. "Everyone just uses me. My mother thinks she's protecting me by making me useful. Alexandra thinks she's advancing science. Oliver thinks I'm a product." She looked up at him with those ancient eyes. "You're the first person who asked if I wanted to play." Leon knelt so they were eye level. "What do you want, Callista?" "I want to be 12. The words came out raw. "I want friends who don't care that I can multiply 6-digit numbers in my head. I want to make mistakes. I want to play piano because it sounds pretty, not because it unlocks something." Her hands fisted in her dress. "But if I stop, the whole system logs errors. They'll know, and they'll lock me down harder. So we don't stop. We break it." "How?" Leon pulled out his phone and showed her the photos from the server room. "You've been leaving clues, origami cranes, patterns in your music. You wanted someone to notice. I noticed. Now we finish what you started." Callista studied the images, her brilliant mind processing angles and options. "We'd need access to the backup generator. A power fluctuation to cover the upload, a countersequence to corrupt the learning model, and a journalist willing to publish before Monroe Dynamics can suppress it. Do you know one? Dante Reeves. He's been investigating the company for 8 months. He'll run the story if we can prove child exploitation." "Then let's prove it." Callista looked at him like he was a miracle, or a fool, maybe both. "You could lose everything. I already lost everything once. You learn to rebuild." He stood. "Tomorrow night. Board meeting. Everyone distracted. We'll burn it down together." She handed him a silver hair clip, the twin to the one her mother had kept. "Give this to her after. She collects broken things. Maybe she'll understand." Leon took the clip and felt its weight. A symbol of something held onto despite everything. Tomorrow night. They'd either free a child or destroy themselves trying. There were worse ways to go down. The storm arrived with fury. Wind slammed rain against the tower's glass skin like accusations. Lightning split the sky, turning Seattle into a city of shadows and sudden illumination. Inside Monroe Dynamics, the board meeting proceeded on the 59th floor, executives in tailored suits discussing quarterly projections while thunder rattled the windows. Leon worked methodically in the mechanical sublevel. The backup generator sat behind a chain-link cage, humming its industrial rhythm. He'd spent 6 hours building a timer bypass from hardware store components. Nothing sophisticated, just enough to cause a brief power fluctuation at exactly 11:37 p.m. Brief. Explainable. Survivable. Enough chaos to hide in. Upstairs, Callista sat at the piano in the glass conference room, sheet music arranged in perfect order. She'd told her mother she needed to practice for an upcoming recital. A lie Vivian accepted because it fit the narrative. Prodigies practice. Genius works. The system continues. But tonight, the music would burn the system down. At 11:35, Leon triggered the bypass. Lights flickered. Emergency systems kicked in with mechanical precision. Across the building, servers shifted to backup power. Computer screens went dark for 3 seconds, then blazed back to life. In that moment of transition, that hairline crack in the infrastructure, Callista began to play. The melody was different. Aggressive. Each chord progression attacked the patterns she'd spent 2 years building. Dissonant harmonies translated to counter-commands. The Halcyon system, receiving contradictory instructions for the first time, began logging errors. Cascading failures rippled through the code. The evidence she'd embedded proof of child exploitation, falsified ethics reviews, illegal military contracts, her own desperate notes in comment fields, uploaded through a hidden partition to an encrypted server registered to journalist Dante Reeves. The building's infrastructure screamed silently in ones and zeros. Vivian burst into the conference room, Oliver and Henry behind her. "What are you doing?" Callista didn't stop. Her hands moved faster, more violent. Tears streamed down her face, but her technique remained perfect even in destruction. She was flawless. "I'm playing, Mother. Just like you taught me." "Stop. You're destroying everything you built on my back?" "Yes." Vivian moved toward the piano, but Leon stepped into the doorway, blocking her path. Their eyes locked across the glass room. Rain hammered the windows. Lightning illuminated Vivian's face raw, shattered, finally human. "She's just a child," Leon said quietly. "She's my daughter. She's brilliant. I was protecting her. You are using her to save millions, to predict disasters, to prevent, to sell her mind to people who'll turn predictions into weapons." Leon's voice hardened. "She folded origami cranes with math on them and hid them around this building, hoping someone would notice. She played piano at midnight because it was the only time she could speak without being translated. You didn't protect her. You silenced her and called it genius." Vivian's face crumpled. I thought, if she was important enough, no one could hurt her. If she was valuable, she'd be safe. She was never safe. She was just expensive." Oliver pushed forward. "This is insane. Henry, shut down that piano. Call legal." "No." Vivian's voice cut through the chaos like broken glass. "Let her finish. You can't be serious." "I said let her finish." Callista's final chord rang out a sustained dissonance that resolved into perfect, ringing silence. The upload was complete. Every file, every log, every piece of evidence was now beyond Monroe Dynamics' reach. The Halcyon system, stripped of its child architect and fed poisonous counterpatterns, collapsed into unusable fragments. In the sudden quiet, Callista stood and faced her mother. "I've taken my voice back." Vivian stared at her daughter. "What have you done?" "What you should have done. I've told the truth." The CEO of Monroe Dynamics, billion-dollar architect, technological visionary, untouchable force, sank into a chair. Her hands shook. "I thought I was building a better future. You were just building a prettier cage." Leon placed the silver hair clip on the piano's polished surface. Vivian saw it and went still. Recognition. Memory. The twin to the one she'd kept on her desk, proof that she'd noticed, that she'd cared, even when she couldn't admit it. "Miss Monroe," Henry said carefully. "We need to call our lawyers." Vivian interrupted. "Tell them to prepare full cooperation with federal investigators. Send every Halcyon file to my personal server. Find out where that upload went, and then help them verify it's authentic." Oliver's face purpled. "You're destroying this company. I'm saving my daughter." Finally, Vivian stood and walked to Callista. She knelt, eye level, and for the first time, in perhaps years, simply looked at her child without calculating value or potential. "I'm sorry. I thought I was giving you purpose. I was just stealing your childhood." Callista stood rigid, a lifetime of control holding her together. Then, it broke. She collapsed into her mother's arms and sobbed, ugly, desperate, human. Vivian held her tight, whispering apologies that would take years to fully mean. Leon backed away, giving them privacy. As he reached the doorway, Vivian's voice stopped him. "Mr. Harris." He turned. "Thank you for hearing what I refused to listen to." He nodded once. "She deserves someone who would." "Yes." Vivian's voice broke. She did. Outside, dawn was breaking. Leon stood on the empty rooftop, 42 floors above Seattle, watching the city wake up indifferent and eternal. His phone buzzed with news alerts. Monroe Dynamics under investigation. AI prodigy exposes corporate exploitation. Halcyon system dismantled. There would be questions, depositions, probably unemployment. But Callista would be free to be 12. That was enough. His phone buzzed again. "Audrey." "Dad, did you save the world yet?" He smiled and typed back, "Just help someone save herself." Below, the city moved on. But in one glass tower, a child was learning to speak without translating herself into code. And that was everything. The federal investigation took 3 weeks. Leon testified for 2 hours, describing what he'd witnessed and what he'd learned. Alexandra Pierce confirmed the scientific methodology was sound, but admitted she'd ignored ethical violations in pursuit of breakthrough. Oliver Grant invoked his right to silence and was immediately removed from his position. Henry Blake provided security logs that exonerated Leon and corroborated every detail of Callista's timeline. Vivian Monroe's testimony devastated the company she'd built. She provided unrestricted access to all Halcyon files, financial records, and internal communications. She admitted to prioritizing innovation over her daughter's welfare, to allowing isolation protocols under the guise of optimal learning environments, to ignoring warning signs because the project's potential seemed more important than one child's humanity. "I told myself I was preparing her for a difficult world," Vivian said on the stand, "but I was just making her world more difficult. I take full responsibility." The judge ordered Halcyon's complete dismantling. All data derived from minor subjects was permanently erased under federal oversight. Monroe Dynamics was required to establish an independent ethics board for AI development, with mandatory psychological review for any research involving individuals under 18. Fines totaled $47 million. Criminal charges were pending against Oliver Grant and 2 defense contractors. Vivian resigned as CEO. In her final statement, she announced the creation of the Callista Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting child prodigies from exploitation, funding arts education without strings attached, and researching ethical AI development with human dignity as the primary protocol. Leon stood in the back of the courtroom when the verdict was read. Callista sat between her mother and a court-appointed advocate. When it was over, the girl turned and found Leon in the crowd. She smiled a real smile, unguarded and young, and gave a small wave. He waved back and slipped out before the reporters could find him. He had a daughter to pick up from school. The public concert was held at a community center 3 months after the trial. Callista Monroe, dressed in jeans and a simple blue sweater, walked onto a small stage lit by warm amber lights. No glass walls, no surveillance, no translation required. Just wood and strings and people who came to hear music instead of code. Vivian sat in the 3rd row, hands folded in her lap. She looked smaller somehow, more human. Her hair was less severe, her clothes less armor-like. She was learning to be a mother instead of a CEO, and the transformation was awkward and beautiful and real. Backstage, Leon found them preparing. Callista was doing breathing exercises he'd taught her: slow counts, deliberate exhales, grounding techniques for when the world felt too big. "First time playing without purpose," Vivian said quietly, watching her daughter. "That is the purpose," Leon replied. "Playing because she wants to." Vivian turned to him. They'd spoken twice since the trial brief, formal exchanges about logistics. But tonight, something was different. Softer. "I don't know how to thank you for what you did." "You don't need to. I was blind. I thought if she was brilliant enough, powerful enough, she'd be safe. I forgot she needed to be loved first." Vivian's voice cracked. "I'm learning. Slowly. That's all any of us can do." Callista finished her exercises and looked at them both. Vivian smiled, tentative but genuine. "I'm proud of you. Not because you're brilliant. Because you chose to be brave." The girl's eyes filled with surprised tears. Then she hugged her mother, quick, fierce, entirely real. The performance was extraordinary. Callista played Chopin with emotion she'd never been allowed before. She played Debussy like she was painting with sound. Then she played an original composition she'd written without fear of translation. Imperfect. Honest. Alive. She missed 2 phrases and smiled at the mistakes. The audience stood and applauded for 5 full minutes. Afterward, in the lobby, Leon introduced Audrey to Callista. The 2 girls circled each other with the careful curiosity of young scientists meeting in the wild. "Your dad said you build robots," Callista said. "Paper ones, mostly. They fall apart a lot. Want to help?" I don't know how. Audrey grinned. I'll teach you. It's easy. You just fold until it looks like something. And if it doesn't work, you start over. They ran off toward a craft table someone had set up. Leon and Vivian watched them go, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. She's making friends, Vivian said, wonder in her voice. Actual friends who don't care about her IQ. That's what kids do when you let them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughters laugh over glue sticks and construction paper. The community center smelled of coffee and possibility. Outside, rain tapped gently on windows soft now, cleansing instead of punishing. I enrolled her in public school, Vivian continued. Normal classes. Normal schedule. There's a robotics club she wants to join, and a piano teacher who doesn't care about competitions. She's learning to be happy. Or getting there. That's good. It's terrifying. I spent 20 years optimizing everything. Now I'm learning to just let things be messy and beautiful. She hesitated. I'm visiting that STEM club Audrey mentioned tomorrow afternoon. The foundation is offering grants. I thought, if you were free, maybe we could get coffee after? I need to learn how you taught your daughter to be fearless without sacrificing safety. I need that wisdom. Leon's heart kicked unexpectedly. This wasn't a business meeting. This was something else. An invitation. Tentative, honest, human. I'd like that. Really? Really? They exchanged numbers while watching their daughters collapse into giggles over a robot that had fallen apart spectacularly. Vivian's expression transformed pure maternal joy, uncomplicated by agenda or calculation. I almost destroyed her, she whispered. But you didn't. You listened when it mattered. That's what saves people. You saved her. No. She saved herself. I just held the door open long enough for her to walk through. Vivian looked at him with something that might have been respect, or gratitude, or the first fragile stirrings of affection. Then, thank you for holding the door. They collected their daughters and walked toward the exit together. Outside, rain misted down gentle and clean. Leon offered to share his umbrella. Vivian accepted. They stood close, not touching, but present in a way that felt like beginning. Two people learning to build something gentler than glass towers. Above them, the city lights blurred into watercolor. Behind them, music and laughter. Ahead, coffee and tentative hope. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply listen when someone speaks in whatever language they have left. 1 year later, Callista gave a talk titled Freedom in C Minor at a technology ethics conference. She spoke about exploitation and the importance of letting children be children, even brilliant ones, especially brilliant ones. She played a short piano piece, deliberately including mistakes, then explained that imperfection was the signature of humanity and the thing machines could never quite replicate. Leon and Vivian watched from the audience, their hands intertwined in a way that was still new but no longer surprising. Audrey sat between them, sketching robots in her notebook. Occasionally, she'd lean against her father's shoulder. Occasionally, Vivian would brush the girl's hair back with careful, practicing affection. They weren't a traditional family. They were something stranger and more fragile. A janitor, a former CEO, and two girls who taught them that wisdom doesn't come from optimization, but from listening, from staying when it's easier to leave, from holding doors open even when you're afraid of what might walk through. After the talk, Callista found them in the lobby. She handed Leon an origami crane folded from conference program paper. No equations this time. No frequencies or timestamps. Just art. For those who listened, she said. He tucked it carefully into his pocket, adding it to the collection he'd kept. Always. They walked together through the convention center doors into Seattle rain. The city hummed its endless rhythm around them, but somewhere in that noise was music. Real music, unencrypted and free. And somewhere in that music was a quiet promise. There are notes that don't need translation. There are conversations that happen in the space between words. There are moments when one person's courage to speak and another's willingness to hear can rewrite algorithms, shatter cages, and prove that humanity's greatest code is written in compassion. As they reached the sidewalk, Vivian turned to Leon. Coffee? Simple. Ordinary. Perfect. Always. Their umbrellas overlapped at the edges, creating a small dry space in the rain. Ahead of them, two girls ran laughing through puddles, making plans for circuits and symphonies, for robots that played music and pianos that built bridges between what is and what could be. Behind them, glass towers stood indifferent. Ahead, a cafe glowed warm with light and ordinary human chaos. And in the space between what was coded and what was chosen, between isolation and connection, between silence and song, four people walked through rain that no longer felt like judgment. It felt like beginning. The world kept turning, one brave conversation at a time.